Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of our Learn to Code series here on DevChatter. Sorry about that, everyone. Audio should be a little bit better now. Hello and welcome, everyone. Yeah, hello and welcome, developers. I hope you are all having a fantastic weekend so far. For those of you that don't know, my name is Brendan. You can probably see that right below me right here. And this channel is DevChatter. We've been around for months now. This is our 79th stream. And it is the fourth stream in our Learn to Code in C# series, which is an event we're doing here on Twitch. And if you take a look on the top of this page, you should see a little bar that says we're in our Learn to Code series. And in addition, whoops, didn't mean to click that. Meant to click. So I was talking about this bar right here. But then there's also, you can go to our events section, which I will go ahead and link in chat there. But this is the event that I'm talking about. So we're on our fourth episode. We have a couple more scheduled out. We try to do these streams on Mondays and Saturdays because that's what most of you replied to our poll and said these would be the days you would most be able to show up. So these are the days we're doing the streams. So welcome, everybody. I see plenty of people coming in saying hi in chat. Hopefully you are all getting situated. If you are here to code along with us, I highly recommend that you go ahead and install the tools that I just linked there in chat. So the three things you're going to want to set up in order to follow along with us in learning to code in C#. You'll want to install a program called Visual Studio Code, and that is a text editor that we're going to be using here in order to write our code. It looks a bit like this once you get it installed, and and thank you for the subscription, Rubix. That is 2 months in a row, so thank you very much for the Twitch Prime subscription. So for anybody who is here, if you do subscribe to the channel, you do get access to our hype emote that you can use in chat here on our channel or on any other channel if you like. It's that little dino guy. He's pretty fun. Okay, so as I mentioned, you'll want to install Visual Studio Code. So if we follow that link that I posted there in chat, it is going to take you to a place that looks a little bit like this, and you're going to want to download. It can tell where you are. So this program works on Windows, Linux, Mac. So whichever system you're on, just pick the one that's right for you, and you can go ahead and install it. Once you have Visual Studio Code installed, you will want to go and install your the Dotnet Core Sdk, which is that second link in there, and that'll take you out to this website. So, and welcome everybody. I see more people showing up in chat. So from here, you're just going to want to download the Dotnet Core Sdk, and this is actually what's going to let you run C# code. So the text editor is what we're going to use to write the code, and this is what's actually going to allow you to build and run the code. Next thing that I need to mention, once you get this installed, you're going to want to run Visual Studio Code, and you're going to want to click on this little button here called Extensions, and then you're going to search for C and then the number sign. We call this C#, that's the name of the programming language. And once you search for that, you should find an extension of the same name, and it's from Microsoft, so it'll look a little bit like this. You're going to want to click the install button. Mine says uninstall because it's already on here, but you're going to install it, and then once it's done, this install button should change to a reload button, and you go ahead and click that, and then your Visual Studio Code will be all set. So hopefully you got most of that. It's not too complicated, but that is what we need to get set up in order to code. If you have any questions, ask them in chat. There are a bunch of us in here that know about coding, because we do have some other people who are professional developers here in chat and can help you out if you have trouble setting up any of these things. Okay, so assuming that you've installed these things so far, the first step that we're going to want to do is go up to File and Open Folder, and then make yourself a folder for where you want to put this program that we're going to write. So I've been doing a folder that's just the date name of what we're doing for this stream. So mine would be today's date, which is July 28th. And when I select this folder, I get this, because I've got an empty folder, so there's nothing in here. Okay, so in order to get started, we want to use the .NET command line tools. So I have this terminal window down here on the bottom of the screen. This is just a command window, think MS-DOS or terminals or whatever you've got in your computer. In order to get that, just go up to View and then come on down to Integrated Terminal. Whoops, because mine was already there, it hid it. But click on that and the terminal should show up down here. Once that's here, I want you to type in the word .NET, so D-O-T-N-E-T, and hit Enter. And this should come back with something. So in this case, it's just a response saying, hey, this is the command. You didn't really use it right, but it exists. And so that's what it showed me right here, is just .NET. Okay. So if I say, so we said .NET, but if I say .NET --info, now mine I've installed all kinds of things on here, but you should have something that comes back. And this is how you know that you've installed the Dotnet Core SDK. Don't want to get into exactly how any of that works because that's kind of complicated, so just install those few things and don't worry about how it all works. We want you to get programming and love programming first, then we can learn all about what's actually going on underneath the hood. Okay, so the command that we're going to use when we get started is .NET new. Now, I typed it in without specifying what I actually wanted to create, and the reason I did this is because I want to show you that when you use an incomplete command like this, it's going to suggest what you might have wanted to type instead. So, this is what it comes back with. It says, oh, hey, I have these templates available, and it says like console application, class library, a bunch of other things. Up till this point, our previous 3 episodes, we've always created a console application. So that means just, it's just running in the command line, which is good for learning to program because you don't have to worry about too much stuff, right? We want you focusing on the logic for now because it's kind of cool to be able to create programs that do something. But today, we're going to go one step further, and we're actually going to make an actual web project. We're going to go simple on the web project, so don't get too worried yet. But we are going to do a web project. The neat thing about this is going to work the same whether you're on Windows, Mac, Linux, doesn't matter. And the type that we want to do, so you'll notice all these ASP.NET ones, these are all web projects. So the one we want to get is, where is it? Right here. ASP.NET Core Web App. So right here. And it says the short name for this is Razer. So see, it says short name Razer. So we're going to say, like we did before, .NET new, and then, whoops, helps if I can type, Razer. So it should look like that. Hopefully you can see that text on there. So .NET new Razer. And when we run this, it's actually going to do a whole bunch of work already for us. So what it's going to do, it created a whole bunch of things up here. Notice above my head there's a lot of files now that weren't there before. We didn't have anything there before. This was empty. So now we have things like this program, this code that it created for us. We've got this code that it created for us. Configuration file, another one. We have another file here. So it gave us all kinds of files and things to mess with. Okay, don't worry about all that. It's plenty of things. We're actually going to focus on a very small part of the code. So here's what I want you to do first. So remember in programming that a lot of times we're using templates and we're leveraging things that other developers have built. So we want you to learn to do some things from scratch because you're going to want to be able to build your own stuff. But plenty of times, we developers don't waste our time building things from scratch because someone already did the work for us. So now that we've got this, I want you to type one more thing in the command prompt here. I want you to type .NET Run. Now this is actually what we did in... this is actually what we did for all of our console apps. We typed .NET Run, oh sorry, let me get my cursor out of the way, every single time. Nipple Mage, that is a fantastic question. So he wants to know what's the difference between a web app and a console app. Now in C# and .NET Core, so that's actually the you know, those are the language and the framework and everything we're using. So in .NET Core, there's actually not a difference. In this case, we actually are a console application, but it's a console application that is going to host a website. So that's actually what's kind of cool about this. So remember before, when we did our console application, if you were here in one of our previous episodes, our program ran entirely in this command window here. So it was all text-based. But now what we're going to do is this. Let me go ahead and do .NET Run. So I hit enter down here. And this code is actually going to run. And it gets to this point here. It eventually says, now listening on. And it has these URLs. So you'll notice it says HTTPS and the address is localhost. So that means it's running on my computer. And it's got some numbers. Don't worry about that. That's just the web address. It'll make sense when it's in my browser. So I'm going to hold the control key like it tells me here. It says control and click to follow the link. So I think that'll work. Okay. Now that just loaded this page. Now this page looks scary. Don't be scared by it. I will explain what this one is. This basically is saying that this is not a private connection. Now, the reason why is because there are special certificates that you need when you put a website out on the internet that verifies that your site really is secure. Now, we haven't gone and bought one of those for our local computer to run this site. So what that means is that our browser's kind of panicking and saying, hey, this isn't a, a third-party signed, thing verifying that this site is secure. And so it's warning us about that. But we're connecting to our local computer, so I'm not trying to hack myself, so I'm not worried about it. So in that case, what you want to do is you want to click on this little word advanced here, and then it says proceed to localhost unsafe. So it's just trying to warn us that whoever built this site might be doing something nefarious. And we're the ones that built it, so we know we're not doing anything nefarious to ourselves. So don't worry about it. Okay. So now the site loads. So congratulations. Once you get to this point, you are a web developer. So good job. And that was deafening to me, so sorry about that. Okay, so congratulations, web developers. You are now able to run your own web project. So for anyone who is coming in late, we have a couple of things that you may want to set up. I will link them there. Go ahead and install those. And then once you get them installed, we can give you a quick explanation of what you want to do if you are having trouble keeping up. So just ask in chat if you missed any steps along the way. Okay. So, the next thing that we want to do is make something of our own. So let's go ahead and change something about this. So this is just a template website. It's actually all about programming. So it's here to help us learn about Microsoft's web programming. So let's do our first change. So go ahead and go into Pages, because you've probably heard of web pages before. And that's how you know this is where the pages are in this site. Go ahead and expand that and open up index.cshtml right here. This is a fancy one, so don't worry about that extension or what it means, but this is a whole bunch of markup. So this is probably more than you want to see right now, because this is going to be confusing if you look at this, because you're pretty new to the web and web development. So what I want you to do is this. Go ahead and select, starting right here on line 7, just click on the number 7 and hold down your cursor so that you're highlighting text, and then drag it all the way down to the bottom using your scroll wheel, and let go, and just hit delete. That's right, I'm telling you to delete everything that is on that page, and go ahead and click the save button. So I just did a Control S to save that, and now I'm going to open up this site again, and I'm going to refresh this page. And there we go. So now all of that stuff that was on here is gone, and we're left only with this top navigation bar and the footer. I'm not going to explain where those came from just yet. Mage, no, you won't need to know about HTML already to do this. We're actually just going to start with some simple things, so don't worry about that. So literally, we're not actually going to do valid HTML to start off with. I just want you to put in the word hello world. So just type that in for now, and go ahead and save it. And I want you to come back here and refresh this page again. And when you do that, it should have the word hello world. So this is not valid HTML or anything like that, but you were able to make it work. So you've just put your first bit of content on your website. So I think that's pretty cool. If you do know HTML, then congratulations, you probably can figure out how to put HTML code on here, because some people that don't know much about programming per se have learned a little bit of HTML. So you may know things like you can put stuff in a paragraph tag. So if you type this little thing, it's just less than p greater than sign. So that little structure there, I'll make this a little bigger if I can. How do I change? There we go. That made everything a little bigger. Hopefully that text is readable now. If we paste hello world in here, now this is valid HTML. So now we're actually much better. We can come here, we can refresh this page again. And when we do that, you'll notice it displays exactly the same because the browser's very forgiving. So we're learning C#, but we're going to learn a little bit about web development as we do it, because this is very central to C# programming. One thing you're going to learn about the web and why it works so well is that your web browser, so whether it be Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, going all the way back to like the Netscape days and things like that, browsers have always been very forgiving. And what I mean by that is your browser wants to display a page. That's its goal. You as the user always want to see a page. If there's an error on the page, your browser will try to figure out how to make it right and still display things anyway. Because you as the user don't want to see an error message, you wanted your web page. If there was a small thing wrong, you still want it to work. So web browsers have been very, very forgiving. That's why I was able to get away with this. I didn't have any tags and I just literally had text in here. That's not valid, but my browser still made it work. So that's what's so cool about web development, is that it just wants to work. So if you are interested in doing more web development, that's one of the first things I'm going to tell you. That doesn't mean it's going to display perfectly. That doesn't mean you're going to get the result you want, but it's going to try to succeed. And yeah, so one of the things that we can do here, I want to change this p tag to an h1 tag. So when I do this, this is called a header. So we're going to learn a little bit of HTML today, but not much. Notice how much bigger that text is now. So that's hello world. Now what I want to do is this. I want to say, welcome to my first website. I am very proud of it. Now it's obviously not my first website, but this is something you could type in if you are one of the new people here. And Rubik's, I will absolutely be mentioning it at some point. And actually, Rubik's, if you are interested in learning about MVC, I would actually recommend you learn Razer Pages, which is, so this has MVC in it. Our website actually supports both right here, but I actually like the Pages better. And yes, Salas Scumpy, this is, and I apologize if I butchered your name there, this is the 4th episode of Learn to Code in C#. We're still going to try to keep it easy enough that even if you didn't catch the earlier episodes, you can mostly still follow along. We will reference some things that were in the previous episodes, and if you do want to catch those episodes, they are actually all available here on Twitch. If you check out the videos section, there is a whole Learn to Code in C# category, and you can actually play all of those. So if you go to the videos section, you can take a look at our earlier episodes right there. As apparently, wow, almost 100 people have watched episode 1 of our Learn to Code in C# series. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Alright, so welcome to our first website. Let's go back to our web page here and refresh again. And there we go. It says, welcome to my first website. So that is exactly what we were looking for. So I'm pretty darn proud of that so far. So wasn't that easy? That is how you build a website. Now, you might be saying, okay, that's HTML, I can just host a website, I've done one of those before. But we're here to program, so we want to see something done in C#. So we want to actually make some changes, make it dynamic, and do something interesting. So let's open up this other file with a very similar name. So we opened up index.cshtml. I now want you to open index.cshtml.cs. So this one just is the same as the previous one, but this one has a .cs on the end of it. When we open this one, you should see code that looks roughly like this. Now this should look more familiar to you if you were here in episodes 1 through 3. In those episodes, we were always running in a console application, so we had this basic structure of these using statements at the top that you'd seen before, the word namespace, the word class, and then we had some kind of method, and this is around where we were usually writing our code. So we usually put code here-ish, right? The method name, the class name, these are kind of different from what we saw in the first few episodes of Learn to Code in C#, but the same concept is here. Okay, so this is the onGet method. So onGet, I want to give you a little explanation of what this is. So in web development, specifically in ASP.NET Core, which is what this is that we're programming in, and you don't have to remember that piece in order to do that this well. All you need to do is know that the get is when someone requests our website. So let me jump over here. When I refresh this, it does a get and actually requests the page. So that's when this runs. So runs when someone requests my page. Okay. And when they do that, it's just when they run this page. If they were to go to the About page, so notice the URL has About, that's a different page. We're actually on index right now. So notice I put index in the URL, but index and nothing are the same. So that's a convention on the web that your index page is your default page. So that's why we went to index. And I don't want to throw too much at you all at once about web development because we're mainly here to learn about coding. So let's do some of the things that we've learned before. So I want you to type in datetime and say .now and write it like this. Say var current time equals datetime.now. So write this code, and then once you have that, I want you to do one other thing. I want you to come up here, and I want you to do something we've done a few times before. Type in the word prop. Now notice when I typed in prop, this little text box popped up here with all these suggestions for me. This first word, prop, here, notice that it's got this description of what it is over here on the right, along with the word C#. Remember, I've told you every time you're using this, it's called Intellisense. Always look for the autocomplete that says C#, because that means you've got the one that's for C# and it's going to complete the way that you want it to. So once you type this, hit tab, and you'll notice it now put in this code for me. So don't worry too much about public, get, set, things like that. We're just going to store a special variable here. So I'm going to specify the type of my variable. You should be used to this by now. Variables are what we are using to store our values. At runtime, when we run our code, we sometimes need to store a value. We're going to store that in a variable. Variables all have a type in our programming language. So this one is a date time object. That means that it stores a date and a time. Crazy, I know. Now let's hit tab, and I want to call this current time. And when I do that, I then want to do something else. Let me start with a capital C. And let me change this. So this was a variable declaration, but I want to do this instead. So remember, you can declare a variable by specifying a type, a variable name, and then saying equals and the value that you want to put in there initially. But you can also use existing variables to assign new values to them. So this equals sign just means assign the value on the right into the object on the left. So that means take datetime.now and put it on current time. When we do that, what we're able to do now, so this is how ASP.NET Razer Pages works. So our index.cshtml.cs, as you can probably guess based on these matching names, these two files are related. This is basically the back-end code for this web page. So what we're able to do now is this. We can say, we're going to make another paragraph, and we're going to say, you requested this page at, and we're going to say @, so like just an @ like you're used to on Twitter, and we're going to say, hang on, why did that not work? Oh, right. Index model, okay, I might be going crazy, guys. I apologize about that. Hang on. Am I going crazy? I don't think I'm going crazy. Let me try running this really quickly. I might be going crazy because that text isn't auto-completing the way I was expecting to. Okay, we did an interesting thing here. We changed the CS file. So what I want you to do, just to be sure that it actually reloads correctly, is come on down here, click in your terminal again, hold the control key and hit C. So that's the same command as like a copy and paste that you're used to. Go ahead and do that. Think of it like cancel instead of copy, and that actually ends a program that you've got running. So that's going to stop our website from running. And then I want you to type .NET Run again. So when you type .NET Run, it's actually going to rebuild your site and make it run. And this is what I was worried might happen. Well, actually, that one isn't what I wanted. That might just be complaining about this. Because I'm crazy. There we go. Okay. So I put this in here. This is C# code. Putting that @ sign in there just says, hey, fall back to C# and let C# do things. Let's go ahead and refresh this page, make sure it shows up correctly, and it does. Okay, good. So I'm going to cut this and move it into the correct location this time. And I don't know if it's going to panic about that or not. We'll find out. Okay, it worked. Good. So what I was worried about is this. This is C# code, and this dot on the end here is not C# code. That's just text that I want to have display. And C# was actually smart enough to figure that out. So here it goes. It says, hello world, welcome to my first website. I am very proud of it. And you requested this page, and it is July 28th, and at my time, it is 1:40 p.m. So there we go. So I think that is pretty darn cool right there. So we're able to pull the actual time value, and we actually got it here. So I think that's pretty neat. What that means is we could do this as well. So hit enter, go ahead and type prop again, and hit tab, and say my message. And for my message, go ahead and just type my message equals. So we're going to give this string variable Connor. This is Visual Studio Code. So if you want to install Visual Studio Code, this is a free text editor from Microsoft that runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I just linked to it there in chat. So Visual Studio Code, it's a lightweight editor that is really, really fantastic. It's actually, according to Stack Overflow's survey this year, the currently most popular editor from Stack Overflow users. Okay, so in our message here, I want you to type in, this is a message from me to you. And now that we've got that, I want you to come over here, and I want you to say at model.myMessage. And when you do that, I want you to load this page again. So come back over here and hit the refresh button, and watch as you get an error because you didn't do things correctly. So remember I told you this thing. Hold Control and hit C to cancel the program, and then type .NET Run. So the reason why we have to do .NET Run between each time doing this is that our program needs to rerun itself to get that C# code in there that we changed. So every time we change this file, the cshtml.cs file, and welcome, little Sylvanus. Thank you for following. Yeah, so exactly, yes. So that was a funny suggestion that we just got from there. So I believe that is actually the command. In chat, it was just mentioned that we tried doing a Dotnet Watch Run. And what that does is this will watch our code. So if I change this message, so first off, notice in my website that it says this is a message from me to you. And that was written here in the C#. So that's kind of cool, because that means we can actually do things from our C# code that affect our web page. So let's change this. So we're going to say this is a changed, and actually I'm going to put that in all caps. And then I'm going to hold Control and hit S to save it. Now watch how it does things. So notice it automatically rebuilt the site down there on the bottom. Oh, zoom in the browser a little bit. Yeah, sure, there you go. So now you can see the text on the browser a little bit better. Sorry about that. Great suggestion. So now, when I refresh this page, it has the change. And notice I did not have to cancel and run. Now, the reason I started you off that way is I want you to know how to stop and restart your website if you need to. When you're developing, you usually want to be in this watch mode. So remember, It's Dotnet Watch Run, and this lets you get away without having to restart the site all the time. Even though I just did it to show you the command again, the point is that you don't have to do it all the time. And that's one of the nice things that's built in. Okay, so I should also warn you that when you're doing that watch, what's actually happening is when you save, it really is stopping and restarting the site, but it does it automatically for you, so you didn't have to do it. Alright, let me check chat and just make sure nothing in there that I missed. Rubix, you commented about not having autocomplete. Yeah, that is one of the challenges that we run into here in VS Code. If you're running full Visual Studio, though, Rubix, you will actually get autocomplete on all the text while you're in here. Okay. Other questions? Could you slow down a bit? Okay, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that, Mage. No problem. Yeah. So anybody who's in here, don't worry if you run into issues. Ask a question if you're getting a bug with something. It's actually, you'll notice I've even run into a couple of bugs. It's totally normal for programmers to run into these things. If you do hit one you don't actually know how to get around, just go ahead and let us know, and we will do our best to help you. There are a bunch of us in here that can offer assistance. So for anybody who's just showing up, this is our Learn to Code in C# series here on DevChatter, which we do. We try to do about one episode a week where we teach beginners how to program, because we want a lot of beginners coming in and learning to code. It's a really fun activity, whether you want to actually end up making a job out of it, or whether you just want to have some fun and know how to code, learn a thing or two. You're all welcome. If you want to follow along, these are the tools that you need to have installed in order to follow along with us. So I just linked those in chat. That's Visual Studio Code, which is this text editor we're using. The Dotnet Core Sdk, which is what that second link is in there. The Dotnet Core Sdk is actually what lets us run Dotnet Core code. And then the last thing is, Pyro. Yes, we are running the the C# extension. The last thing is the C# extension. So for that, you're going to want to click on this little button here on the left, above my head over there, when you have Visual Studio Code installed, and you just search for C#. So C and a $sign, or number sign, I mean. And it should show up here. It's by Microsoft. That's how you'll know you got the right one, and it'll just be C#. It'll look like this. And that will help you write C# code in this editor. So if you are interested in following along, that's all you have to do to get set up. Okay. Yes, we are coding in Dotnet Core. Nearly everything we do on DevChatter, whether it's for our beginner series or for any of our other streams, basically everything we're doing on the channel right now is Dotnet Core. So if you are interested in Dotnet Core, this is the place to be. Congratulations, mate. You figured it out. Good job. See? You're already figuring out how to be a programmer. So, Rubix, the reason I'm currently focusing on Dotnet Core here on the stream is actually a couple of reasons. One of the first ones is Dotnet Core is light, fast, and efficient. It is also the new and current platform from Microsoft. And in addition, it runs cross-platform, so Dotnet Core is actually the .NET that runs best across Windows, Linux, and on Mac. So anyone who is interested in running this code can run it on any of those places, so you can develop the code and run the code in all of those platforms, so it's actually quite nice. Dotnet Core, as I mentioned, is lighter weight, it is new, it is fast, and it is a very, very powerful platform to be writing code on. If you mean how did I get started with it, while I am not a Microsoft employee, I have done work for Microsoft. The first exposure I had to Dotnet Core was I wrote some initial Learn to Code like for beginners and new people to C# series of tutorials for Microsoft that were originally on their .NET website when they created the dot.net website, specifically to focus on .NET Core. So I actually was one of the people that did the initial documentation for learning this language and framework for Microsoft. So there's a lot of content that Microsoft can't get to on their own, and so they do hire outside consultants to assist them with it. So if anybody knows Steve Smith, our Dallas, Steve Smith also worked on some of that content. He actually did more of that content than I did. I did some as well. James Chambers, I believe, also did some. He's been a guest here, so a couple of the guests here on the stream have also been people that have contributed to that stuff. So anyway, back to our code here. Hopefully that gets some people set up. So again, if you are interested, I will once again link the setup information in there. So that's VS Code, Dotnet Core Sdk, and the C# extension. Those are the only 3 things you need to install. And if you have questions about that, seriously ask in chat. There are a bunch of us that can help. Okay, so we were able to change our code here. So I want to do some other neat things. And notice anytime I hit Control S and do a save, whether I change anything or not, if you watch down there on the bottom, it's actually going to restart that site every single time. And I apologize about my cough today. I have a small cold, not something that should affect my ability to stream though. The stream must go on. Everybody wants to see the stream. Okay, so I mentioned that we wanted to do some interesting things with C#. So some of the stuff that we have done in the past has to do with math. So I want to do something kind of neat. I want to say, what's a good thing to call this? We're going to say public static, and just follow along with what I do here, and say public static int count. And I'm actually not sure how well this is going to work. So we're going to say public static int count equals 0. Katrina, yeah. Yeah, so Razer Pages is actually really cool. The onGet is sort of like a get reserved MVC controller action that's tied specifically to this page. And if that didn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. Occasionally I will answer questions that are higher level than the beginner stream while we're on these. If I ever do one of these, don't worry about it. That's nothing you really want to concern yourself with too much. Okay, so what I did here was I said count equals 0, and then I did count plus equals 1. So for anybody who's been here before, you know that plus equals 1 is the same thing as writing count equals the value of this. And there's a shorthand for that in C#, and you say plus equals. So that just means add 1 to the value that's in count and assign it back into the variable. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to do this. Click on the number 14 to highlight this whole line, copy it, and put the word count in here. So model.count. And if you haven't guessed by now, writing the word model here while we're in this CSHTML file, it gives us access to anything that is on this object. So that's why we're able to access these 3 values. So this is a fancy way of saying, hey, get me the value that's on that object. And that's actually what those do. So now I've saved this page, and if I go back to the website and I reload again, can we access the instance reference? Oh, whoops. Yeah, that's true. So I just talked to you about that. I want you to do this instead for this one. Say indexModel.count, which is a slightly different thing. And now we see the number 1. And if I refresh the page, and I refresh the page, and every time I refresh the page, it is keeping track of that value and incrementing it. So this is a neat concept, and Adon, you are wondering what programming language makes the most money, and I know that there's information about which programming languages actually earn the most money for developers that use those languages. But I will tell you that what's going to matter more is where you're located, what industry you're in, and your skill level, background, things like that. That will make a bigger difference on the amount of money that you make than what programming language you use. That being said, I don't know the exact numbers on those right now, but there's a lot of variance, and you can look into that on the internet because there is information about it. Loki, yeah, C# in HTML, it's very fun. And yes, Mage, it doesn't matter how many years of experience you have programming, we all have bugs. Okay, so we stopped at the number 42 here. That's how many times I loaded this page. Now I want to show you the interesting thing about what we just did here. If I go here, and I save this page again, notice down here on the bottom, it's restarting the site, it's rebuilding it, and when it does that, and I go back to the page, and I refresh, the number's back down to 1. So I'm actually showing a cool programming concept related to C# right now. So if you are here and are one of the newer programmers, I want you to pay attention for a moment. So I did something cool. We've been using this concept in our programming up to this point, and you have not noticed yet. Well, you may have noticed, but I haven't discussed the topic yet. Might be the best way of explaining it. So this whole time, you've always seen the word public class something. Let me open the file you're used to seeing. So in most of our work so far, we've been in the program.cs file. And it looks like this, and it always had public static void main. This is where we wrote our code in all the previous episodes because we did console applications. So our code went right here, and we would occasionally call a method. So this is the method that's called right here. Okay, so the thing that I never talked about is that we were inside of a program class. So this is a public class, and its name is program. And we always started in a main method. So this is actually how a lot of programming languages work. They have what's called a main method, and this is actually where the program is supposed to start. So it sort of tells the platform that you're working on, hey, I'm writing code, this is the entry point, this is where I want you to run first. So it runs this code, and then this code is going to call everything else. So it all starts from here. So this is actually what starts up our website. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, in C#, everything we do in our programming language is inside of what's called a class. And a class is, think of this like an object. And an object has two things about it. It has behavior, so that's these methods. So these are the step-by-step instructions that we're running in our programming language. In addition to that, they can have data. So they can have data and they can have behavior. The data is this stuff right here. So notice, so I jumped over to our index.cs.html.cs again. So this is the one related to that. It's the one we've been working on here. Notice that I have this public void on get. So this is a method, and everything in it, this is the step-by-step instructions that we've been running up to this point. So that means it runs this code, and then this code, and then this code. So if I were to run this, that's the order that it goes in. The data inside of my class, so notice it's inside of this class object. This is the data. This data is actually on my index class. Okay, so to explain, because there's a little bit of a thing here, and this may be useful even for the people that already know C# that are in here. The way that Razer Pages works, now Razer Pages, as you'll remember, is the type of web application that we said we wanted to create when we did our new thing. We said console new Razer when we did our initial setup of our project. And when we did that, that created for us this whole big template of structure stuff. And it created these pages, this index.cshtml and this index.cshtml.cs. Right here, it says the model object for my page right here, for this thing that we're viewing, the model is called index model. And you'll notice this class name is called index model. So what that means is it says, hey, when somebody requests my page, run it through this code here. And so that's sort of like saying this is, almost an entry point of its own for that web page. So that means when someone does a get on my page, this is kind of like your main method, sort of. And so that's actually what gets run. It creates an instance of this class. So it creates one of these index model objects. Kind of like how we created a string before, or we created a date time, or we created an integer. We've created these variables before. We're going to create a variable that is an index model, okay? And it creates one each time we call this page. When it does that, it returns back here these values. Now let me prove to you how this works. So we have this variable called count right here, and we set it equal to 0 initially. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to call this other count. And we're going to remove the word static from this one. Okay, now I want to come down here to the count plus equals 1. Whoops, I'm not going to typo. I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to say other count plus equals 1. So now these are treated exactly the same except for one difference. That difference is the word static. So I'm now finally, on episode 4, going to explain to you why we always had the word static. Why did we... Mage, it's about to make sense. I'm explaining that right now. Okay. So, this word model that we had here in our page, model is not the name of a type. Model is a variable. So when we do this right here on line 2, we say model equals index model. What this actually did behind the scenes is this said, hey, use this as my model object. And then somewhere along the way, in the back, where we don't see, this is code done for us, there was code like this that was written. It was index model equals, new index model. So this happened somewhere behind the scenes. Something kind of like this. I'm not going to get into exactly what happened, but code like that happened. And so what that means is, on this page, there is a variable called model with a capital M that looks like this, and it is of type index model. And that's actually what we're using right here. So this is actually using a variable called model. And we're using this property on it. Okay, so that's what was actually happening. Because of that, what we can do is we can access the my message that was on our object that we set right here. And now we also have this other count that's also on the object. So when we go over here, I can now add, I want to do this again, but now I want to say model.otherCount. So remember, other count is actually on our object, and count is the static one. Now I'm kind of implying the difference here. Static isn't really on our object. So this is not really on the object. Static means I'm on the type, which is kind of confusing. This is a big concept. That's why we waited until episode 4 to talk about this one. Static means that is a way of saying I exist on the index model type. Without the word static, it means I'm on an instance of that type. So you'll remember, I could make string first name equals Brendan, and I could say string last name equals Enric, right? And I can do that, and that is 2 string type variables. So this is a variable, and this is a variable. They are both strings, and they both have their own values. They're separate things. What I'm trying to tell you is, every time you call this page, it creates a new index model object for that request of the page. So, now that we have those on there and everything's saved, let's take a look at what's happening with those 2 counts. Okay, they're both 1. That makes sense. And now when I refresh this page and keep refreshing it, notice the top one, which is our static one, is increasing as I refresh the page, but the lower one is not increasing. And here is why. This first one is static, so that means it's on this. It's on this object. A static thing, static is because I know there are non-English speakers in here, non-native speakers I should say. Static, and the word might exist in your language too, I don't know. But this just means that it's, in this case, think of it as like persistent. It's unchanging. It's not associated with the instances of this. It's associated with the class. So that's what these static ones mean. So back when we were using program, we were not creating an instance of our program each time. When our code runs, there's only one main, because there's only one entry point. So because of that, it's static. So that's the concept. When you run a program, you start at the entry point because you only want one entry point to your program. It's static. So that's why it was always like that. Okay, so that means over here in our code, the question that was asked by Mage, you asked why we said model everywhere else, and on this one we said index model, and that's because this count that we have here is not on the instances. It is actually on the type. So we access it by saying indexModel.count. Okay, so the question for you, have we done this type of thing somewhere else already? And the answer is yes. Let me show you what we did before that you didn't even notice. Okay, right here we have current time. When we first wrote this, I wrote it as date time, current time, equals date time dot now. Now when I wrote this, what's interesting here, this is the type. This word date time, that is the type. Current time is my variable. And datetime.now is a static property that we called. So now is on the datetime class. So and let me call it a class. For anybody who knows C# really well, when I say things like I am simplifying some things, but yes, that's the idea here. Is this is a static call to now, and that's actually what gets us this, because when our program is running, we only need one instance of what now is, right? One access to the clock on our system. So let's do that. So that means, because this is static and this is not, when we change this value like we were doing, so remember down here we're increasing it, this is increasing it on the instance of index model, or the type index model. And remember, because it's static, that means persistent. It's running, it exists for the life of our program running. That's why when we restarted our program, it went back down to 1. So we set it to 0, then we incremented the value, and that's how it worked. Okay, let me take a look at what Mage is saying. Date time is a type. Wasn't it a class? Okay, so yeah. A class is how we define a type. So types are defined as classes or structs or things like that. So int, string, float, double, those are actually all types. But they're also classes. So the way that they're defined is they are actually, whoops, didn't mean to click on that. They are actually defined this same way with like this structure, and they have values. So I will give you an explanation. So I can make a new datetime object because there is a class called datetime. So I could make I could say make my variable datetime. Let me do it this way. So we're going to say type variable name, and then we assign into this variable right here that has this type, we're going to put this value. And by doing this, actually, S&B, what we're talking about right now is we have a pretty simple application. Yes, see, okay, one second, I will get to that. So, Huff, one thing I mentioned, when I first called datetime a class, I did say, and I had mentioned a bit ago, I said, if you know C# pretty well already, don't correct me on this. I'm actually just simplifying it for an easier explanation to people. But yes, you are correct. It is a struct, but I don't want them to worry about that yet because they are so new to programming that the difference between those isn't going to matter. So, but yes, you are correct. It is one. Okay. And in case you are wondering, I actually do go to a lot of conferences, and I do most of my presentations are actually on C# at a much higher level, and we're usually talking about all the underlying stuff in C# at those. So I do actually know what's going on under there, but I apologize to everybody who is in here. I will admit I do lie to you from time to time, but I do it because if I told you everything about C#, your eyes would glaze over, you would get bored, and you would be mad at me. So, I won't lie to you about important things. Some things are just irrelevant details for now, and won't help you just yet. Okay, so this is the concept. This is a type. It is also a class. So notice I can do that. I can also do this, just to show you how it works. I can say index, and I'll call this variable myIndexModel equals new index model. I can do this just as easily. So notice that these two lines of code look exactly the same. Here's the cool thing. I created a new datetime object and I assign it into the datetime variable. I created a new index model object and I assigned it into the myIndexModel variable. So that's what's so freaking cool about this, is we are actually, every time we create one of these classes, we are creating like the structure to be able to build more stuff. So like we're building the building blocks of our program here. So that's what's so neat about the way that programming languages work. So when you were saying, isn't that a type? I thought that was a class. I thought that was a type. Classes are the way that we define our types in C#. We create a class, and that defines a type. And what Huff was mentioning is structs can also define types, but don't worry about those just yet. We're not going to be creating them. We're not going to be using them. It'll be a while before we talk about those again in detail. So that's how that works. So my index model has a count, has other count, and index model has count. Right? So I can say plus equals 1 on that, and plus equals 1. Okay? So I can use these like this. Whoops, that space is not supposed to be there. So what I want to show you is this is why in our code one of these was being accessed by model.otherCount, and the other one was indexModel.count. So that's actually how that works. So it's kind of neat. Okay, I don't really need any of this code here though, so I am going to delete it. I just wanted to put that there to explain to you the concept of what is going on with those classes. Okay, so that is our code running again. And Fizzle, welcome, hey. For anybody who is wondering, who is here, I'm going to post a few things. First off, for any developers that are here that already know enough about development, I do want to mention all the code that we do here on the stream is actually stored out on GitHub. If you are here today is a special day here. We are doing one of the episodes. This is the 4th episode of our Learn to Code in C# series. I just posted the link to that series over there in the chat, so if you want to catch our other episodes of this, that's the place to do it. And if you missed any of our past episodes, click up here on the videos section of our of Twitch here, and you'll see a whole section on Learn to Code in C#, and that'll get you started with starting on our first episode, and you can catch those other ones as well. We try to do about one of these a week, and then our other 3 streams a week are on they're higher level, so they're not necessarily for beginners, but beginners are still welcome to show up to any of those, and we will answer questions if you have any. So sometimes it just helps to watch people write code. We have a lot of fun with it, and we hope you would enjoy it as well. And if you want to know when our streams are, you can just go ahead and say schedule, and then what? If you want to see our schedule, just go ahead and say !schedule over there in chat and type in whatever place you are in, and it should return back the time for when our streams happen, and that's how you can catch our streams. You can also look down below, and there's information about when they happen. They're on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so we hope to see you all there. Fizzle TV, that's absolutely something that sounds quite fun. C# is a fun language, and I don't know what kind of requirements you have for that, but I would love to hear about it. Also, for anybody who is wondering, if you do want to chat with me or any other DevChatter developers, that's anybody here that's in the community. We're trying to build an awesome community with this. Go ahead and check out our Discord, which I just linked over in chat as well. Discord is a chat application that's commonly used by gamers, Twitch streamers, things like that. Think Slack, but for gamers. It is over there. Go ahead and check that out, and you can chat with us outside the stream. And if you are here and new and want to get started and follow along with us, I recommend, at this point we're a ways in, but you can follow along and watch us and ask questions. But you can also check out our existing videos, and for all those things, what you want to do to get started is you want to go through those setup instructions right over there, and I just posted them in chat. So it's install this text editor that we've got here. It's called Visual Studio Code, and it is actually the text editor. This text editor works on Windows, Mac, Linux, wherever you are, you can run this text editor, and you'll want to install the Dotnet Core Sdk. That's what that second link is there, that Microsoft one, so the Dotnet Core Sdk. And then you'll want to install the Visual Studio Code extension right here for C#. So you just search for C# after clicking on that, and you'll find it right here. And then you'll be able to follow along. Okay. Oh, no problem, Fizzle. We actually have a decent number of Germans here on the stream as well. And Mage, to answer your question, yes, we can. Here's what I want to say. We have this special message from the webmaster. We're going to wrap this in quotes, like so, and say, this page has been visited count times since restarting. So there's what we want to type in there. So you requested this page at this time. This page has been visited this time since restarting. So let's go ahead and look at our page again after refreshing. So now what we have is, we have this special message for you from the webmaster, and then it says, this is a changed message from me to you. And then this page has been visited one time since restarting, and now when I refresh, you'll see that that number is incrementing. So I think that's pretty darn cool. And yeah, Bits by Bits, see? Bits by Bits knows how Twitch streams work. Okay, so... Oh, that is an awesome set of stuff there. Fizzle TV, in that case, make sure you click the subscribe button, and I tell you that because our regular streams here on the channel use events, interfaces, lambdas, link, serialization. We use attributes, we use exceptions, we try and catch them, we use async, we use await, we run unit tests using resharper, and we don't comment all of our public methods, but we do have comments on some of them. So yes, literally everything on your teacher's list is actually done here on a regular basis on this channel. So that is a good set of stuff. And Bits by Bits, yes, this is ASP.NET Core, so not just ASP.NET, and good job not linking that. Bits by Bits is a Twitch expert here, definitely knows how Twitch bots work. So welcome, Bits by Bits. So this is Razer Pages. So Dotnet Core uses a thing called Razer Pages, and that actually means, so I apologize if this doesn't make sense to someone that is more beginner here, it means that we actually have access to MVC, and it still works here, but it's a slightly different approach. So it's as decoupled as MVC is, but we still have a little more cohesiveness in that our code is more tied to the view that we are showing. And by that I mean we can do things in a controller and still be completely decoupled from a view. But we can also do a Razer page, which is what this is, and it can actually tie in a very decoupled, no page lifecycle, nothing like that, but still bindable C# class object. So it's actually very cool. So that's actually what we're doing here. And you're welcome, Bits by Bits. So yeah, Fizzle, if you haven't yet, you definitely want to click the follow button and check out our regular streams here on the channel. They will absolutely help you in your class because that is exactly the kind of code that we cover here. And sounds like Bits by Bits already knows some stuff about C#, so welcome. Today is one of our beginner streams, but you are welcome to hang around, answer questions, or ask them if you've got them. And since you seem to know MVC already, I would recommend you actually check out our regular streams here as well. And this is the schedule for them. There we go. I don't know where you are, but Fizzle, there's our schedule in Germany. So Central European summertime right there. So welcome everybody. Okay, so, and thanks for following, Fizzle. So here is the cool thing about this. So notice that we're able to just kind of put in wherever we want these little bits of C#. Anywhere we want in this page, we can just drop in some C#. And when I say we can just drop in some C#, I am not kidding at all. I mean, we could just decide, hey, you know what? I want to write C# code. So I could do this. I could say, let's do it this way. So I apologize about the little bit of HTML here. Let's make a list. Oh, whoops, that's a list item. I wanted to do this. We're going to do an unordered list. So I'm going to teach you a little bit of HTML here. And you've seen these on the internet. And thank you for the follow, Bits by Bits. First item. So I'm going to copy and paste this a couple of times. So all I did was just make this a few times. And I'm just going to do this so you can see. When we go here, I created a list. So this HTML right here creates that list. So it's just one of these. Pretty simple, easy to work with. And Bits by Bits, as a quick explanation, we actually build that bot that you're interacting with here on stream, so it is actually running here in my Visual Studio right now. So that's actually the bot that you're interacting with. Okay, so these 4 items made that list right here. But I told you that we could put C# in here. So let's see what happens if we did this with C#. Now this is not the normal way that you'd write this. There's a better way in ASP.NET Web Pages, but I want to show you this so you can see what you're capable of, because sometimes these don't line up perfectly and you do need to revert back to just doing C#. Okay, so I told you the @ sign tells it, hey, I'm in C#. And I've told you many times before that curly braces are how we say this is a code block. Okay, so this is saying right here on line 19, this is going to be C#. CryptoBG, this is .Net Core. Hello, Not for Benny. Welcome, everybody. I see a lot of people coming into chat. Welcome, everyone. So I want to say for each, and actually I don't want to do a for each. I want to do a for loop. We're going to do a for loop just like we did every other time. And if you don't remember the syntax for the for loop, what you can do to get one is hop over here and just type in for, and remember, when this Intellisense pops up, that's that nice window that's helping us, that autocomplete window. Hit the cursor down to get to the one that gives this help text over here that says it's for C#, and then hit tab. So now, when I do this, I can get a completed for loop for me. So I can take this now, and I can cut it. So it wasn't as nice over here about giving me one, so I put it there, and I can sort of steal it that way. Now, a little trick, if I highlight all these lines and I hit the tab key, it tabs over. Whoops, not when I hit the Q key. If I then hold shift, the shift key, and I hit tab, I can remove tabs. So shift and tab are your friends for getting your code lined up how you want it. Okay. So now I've got this for loop. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in some HTML right in there. Now this is not going to be right yet, but remember what I'm always telling everybody that is a beginner programmer, and actually I would give this advice to anybody who's experienced as well. Always run your code. You don't need to complete it. Just get it to a running state and run it. And the reason why you want to run it is you want to make sure that you didn't make any mistakes. So the fewer changes you make before you run it, the easier it is to find it if you did make a mistake. So let's put that in there, and we're just going to run this. Okay, so notice they all just say first item, but isn't that cool? We just made 10 items in that list. So we built that list, for us by just doing this. So what's kind of neat is this is just HTML. So it was smart enough to figure out, hey, that's not C# code. Let's not treat that as C# code. Let's treat that as, you know, HTML code. So it put that in for us. So that was kind of neat. And thanks, S&B. Much appreciated. Okay, so let's change this. Item number. And now I want to say @I. So just to be clear, I said item number and then @I. And there it goes. So now all these are numbered. So that is pretty cool right there. Now you'll notice that it started from 0. Mage. This is what tells it that it's that I'm going to be putting in some C#. So once I do this, it starts looking for C# code. When it gets to something that it realizes is not C# code, which is what this is, it reverts back and says, hey, okay, this section wasn't C# code. Now, because I was at that point, in order to get C# code in this piece, I had to say @I again. So that's why this tells it I'm going to have a big block of C#. It identified this as not being C#. And so in order to get C# again, I had to do that. So C# is the coding language that we're using. So, okay, so it started at 0, which for a programmer is actually where we start things most of the time. Our lists usually start at 0, but we understand that non-programmers don't think that way. So let's change I equal to 1. And when I do that, and run this again, you'll see that it starts out at 1, because our loop started at 1. This is where we told it to start. But now it only went up to the number 9. We wanted to have 10 items here, so we have two options. We can either change this to keep going as long as I is less than 11, and that works. Or we could have done less than or equal to, and so that is actually another operator in C#, not just less than, but this is less than or equal to. And you'll see that I can refresh and this works as well. But since this is the standard structure, having an equals, I try to avoid doing a less than or equal to in my for loops. That's because most programmers are used to seeing this structure. So because we're used to seeing this one, if you are going to deviate from it, you want to deviate as little as possible, so it's more likely that programmers will notice what you're doing. Okay. So the other thing I want to point out, who has noticed that I have been changing this code right here, and this number keeps incrementing? Anybody notice that? This is a cool thing. Remember, I told you that when we save, it rebuilds for us. So the trick is, if we save one of these CSHTML files, when we save one of these CSHTML files, it does not actually rebuild the site. So the site is still running, so that means that count is still incrementing. So I can make a change here. I could remove that colon, for example, and you'll all notice it disappear here, so you know I changed the site, but that number keeps incrementing. If I change a CSHTML file, say getting rid of that word and save, it rebuilds the site, and we're back down to 1. So remember, when you change a full C# file, like this, one of the C# files, which you can always identify because C# files end in a .cs extension. Remember program.cs that we did most of our code in. .cs just means it's a C# file. When you change one of those, the site's going to rebuild, but when you change one of these CSHTML files, so that is our Razer page, these don't cause the site to restart, so it's actually kind of cool. Okay, for anyone who didn't notice, I think everybody here has probably heard the term HTML before and understands that that is the language that the web is built in. If you didn't, congratulations, that's what the web's built in. So you maybe have seen HTML extensions on web pages before. That just means that it's an HTML file and your browser knows how to read those. These files, you'll notice, are not HTML files, they are CS_HTML files. What that means is that is a special kind of file that is specific to ASP.NET programming. And the CS_HTML file just means C# HTML file, basically. So that's what a Razer file is. So when we've been using this term Razer, you probably saw that when we did our initial creation, and I've called these Razer Pages before. Razer is just a fancy, is just a word for what this like @style syntax is. So these are Razer Pages. So that means that we're putting C# into our HTML files. It's sort of like a combination. So it's kind of cool. Oh, and Bits by Bits. Yes, you'd asked that question. Hey, I got to it. Yeah, so Mage, hopefully you saw how I did the for loop to get that out of the other spot. Is your file extension CS_HTML? Yes, it is. Weird. Yep, okay, I just got the explanation. I've been tearing through GitHub myself. I went through YouTube and started watching from the first stream where the bot was made, and I've been nothing the times and actions the project with construction should be done before too long. Very cool, Zultralord. Hopefully you're enjoying that. So for anybody who is wondering, you can actually find a whole bunch of videos that we've done here on the stream, here in this section. If you want to see our Learn to Code series, it's all right here in Learn to Code. But all the rest of our videos are either here on Twitch, and you'll see a bunch of videos here. Sometimes we have guests like this one, and you can spot the guest ones because you'll see someone else's face up in the top right corner. But then additionally, if you can't find it here, the other place to find our videos is out on our YouTube channel, because these videos only survive on Twitch for a little while. So if you want to see our other videos, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/DevChatter. It's right here, looks a little bit like this, and you can find all of our videos and everything like that. So go take a look if you're interested. And I'm going to catch up on chat really quickly. It's a great thing to do because we're entering a website count times. Wow, I've always done less than or equal to in my loops. We'll try the other way. Yeah, so a few programming languages default to the less than sign, stug.eg, and that is actually why I recommend you use that syntax, is because most people are used to it. You can use the less than or equal to if you want, but the only danger of that is another programmer might not notice the equal sign and will think it's a less than. Although the best way to check that is to see what it auto-completes in your programming language. So for C#, for example, when I do a for loop, and I use, so remember when you type this in, type it, and then you can choose the autocomplete you want by using the up and down arrow keys. I choose this C# one, you'll notice it defaults to a less than sign. So that tells you that the default in C# is going to be a less than sign. So that's how you know. And welcome, Pepper Man. Pepper like Pepsi? Okay. And Zultralord. We would love it if you contribute to our project. So if anybody in here is a programmer and wants to contribute to any of our projects, you are all welcome to contribute to any of our projects here on DevChatter. And they're all out on GitHub. I just linked that in chat again. Would you covering how to debug the code? Bits by bits. We do cover how to debug code here on the channel. We do that mostly in our other streams. Debugging is probably going to be in an episode or two here on Learn to Code, so if you are interested in learning how we actually debug our programs, we didn't start off with that here because we're trying to keep things simple enough that we don't have to do too much debugging, but we will be doing that sometime soon on the stream here. Okay, if you... Yeah, no problem, bits by bits. Mage, did you come over here into the cshtml.cs file and do inside of your on-get, type in the word for and choose this option and hit tab? Because that's the way that it'll autocomplete, is over here. If you wanted it to autocomplete while you're in the Razer file, you'll need to be in Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. So we use VS Code here on the Learn to Code streams, and the reason we use this is that it's lighter weight and easier for all of you to get started programming. But if you wanted to have, if you really are invested and you're sure you want to do C#, you can install full Visual Studio. It is a fantastic and powerful program that has so many features you will never get to. This is kind of like the Photoshop of programming. This program is massive. I think its install has got to be like 13 gigs or something crazy like that now. It is huge. But it does so many things. Anyway, I just figured I'd mention that. Okay, yep, that's right, Mage. That's actually why, so even when I wrote this for loop, I hopped over into the CS file here as well to get the autocomplete, because I know that I can do that inside of VS Code. So if you ever need auto-completion from C#, just hop into a full-blown C# file and you will get all the C# syntax. Exactly, Mage. Even if you're inside of this, while that does tell the system that it's going to be C# code, the editor can't get all of that because we are using... so VS Code is a very powerful editor, but it's still lightweight. So it's very powerful for being as lightweight as it is. Okay. So that is our website here. So far, we've built this. We can pull values direct from that. We can pull this value. We can build code right in line. The next thing I want to do is, so I'm not here to teach you web programming today. We're just doing a little bit of this so you can kind of see how this works. And if you wanted to take a look more at this, all of you have actually learned enough that you would be able to go to dot.net, so right over here, and you could actually get started with all kinds of stuff and learn a lot about programming. And in fact, you could even click on the web section, and I think at this point you know enough to click over onto getting started with this. That's interesting that their app isn't, they're not using Razer on here yet. This is out of date. They need to upgrade this. So I apologize about that, everybody. But a little aside, you all actually have learned enough from this point that you could easily go out to those pages and follow along and learn more stuff. In fact, in one of our streams coming up here, I don't know whether it's going to be episode 5 or episode 6, I haven't decided yet, we are all going to walk through one of Microsoft's tutorials together. So one of their beginning programming tutorials, we're going to do that together on stream. And part of the reason we're going to do that is because they made it really easy to follow along. And so those are actually the types of tutorials that I was building for Microsoft before. Okay. So, we can do a whole bunch of things. So I want to show you all something kind of cool. So at this point, go ahead and click back in your terminal and press Control and C. Remember, I called that like the cancel command. It's inside of your program here, and then you should get access to your terminal again. So, you could .NET build, for example, and this will build your website. It should succeed when you do this. And then something else that we can do here that I want to show you. So, someone asked at the beginning of this stream, and I said I would get to it eventually, and we are finally here. They asked, what's the difference between, or is there a difference between a web application and a console application? And I said, there's technically nothing different. Not in this platform, at least. And here's what I meant. So we had, up to this point, in our previous 3 episodes, we had been building console applications. That means they ran here on the console, and we would type .NET Run, and they would go ahead and run, and they would ask us questions, and we would type in answers, and it would do stuff. So if you want to learn basics of programming, check out our first 3 episodes. That's what we did. Very cool stuff. It's great for learning to program, and in fact, we're going to do more of it because it is so good for programming. Even professional developers go back to the command line to test out their stuff. However, the question of whether a web application is different, I said the answer is no. There's no difference. And the reason is that we are actually a console application. So I'm going to comment out that line of code by putting these 2 slashes here. 2 forward slashes in C#, as you'll remember, is how we comment. So that's just a way of noting something. It's not really executable code, but you can write whatever you want. So I could say, "Hi everybody," and you know, it's a useless comment, but I can put it in there. So I also could just delete this line of code, but I don't want to do that because I want to put it back in a moment. But I want to do this. Console.writeLine hello world. And now I'm going to do a .NET run. And when I .NET run this, notice what it did. This is the cool part. It said hello world. Steep left, hello, welcome. So if you check that out, notice we didn't start up a website this time. All we did was say hello world. I could then say console.readLine, which you'll remember is how we requested data from our user. So I could say console.writeLine. What's your favorite number? Question mark. And then I could console.writeLine. So I am going to say chosen number equals int.parse. So this code should all look familiar. We did this in previous episodes. If you didn't see those episodes, don't worry too much. Basically what I'm doing is I'm saying read what the user types, convert it into a number, store that in our number variable, and now what I'm going to do is say chosen number is a nice number, but I like chosen number plus 1 better. Oops, hang on. It's bigger. Okay. So now when I run this, what actually is going to happen here is it's going to say, hello world, what's your favorite number? And we'll say 8. And it says, 8 is a nice number, but I like 9 better. It's bigger. So, kind of a silly program, but I think I've now proven my point here that our web application was actually a console application the whole time. So if I put this back and I run it again, watch what happens. Now it's a website running again, and I can go back to that website and refresh, and boom, it's working. The other thing to notice, down here, there's always stuff happening. So you'll notice that the command line window is changing. So this is where we ended it, but there's stuff going on. All that stuff that's appearing in the terminal window down there is just the web server responding to our request. So that is, you know, we hit this page, and when we hit it, if you watch down there, you'll see stuff is changing because it's keeping track. So like, whoops, right down there, every request we make is putting stuff in that terminal window. So it's kind of cool. And yes, S&B, it's just in .NET Core. It's ASP.NET Core is where this is the case. And Stuggy, your question of the .NET command being only .NET Core or .NET Full, I want to clarify. Because you two you are you know about .NET Core and .NET Framework. I want to clarify, that's not... I don't think Stuggy got the right answer there. It is only ASP.NET Core where the program is a console application. You can run ASP.NET Core and have it leverage the full .NET Framework, and it's still a console application that runs ASP.NET Core's website. You can still do that. So I just want to clarify that just because you're running the core version, and yes, it is the .NET Core command line is .NET Core. So I just wanted to clarify that point. So you're welcome, Stuggy. Just don't want to make sure that you're confused on that one. Okay. So, and if that didn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. Trust me. Those are concerns you don't have yet if you are one of the beginners here. Okay. So that is about what I wanted to do today on here. So I want to take some time. I know there are beginners here. Let me know if you've got questions about what we were just doing. We are going to do more on this, but I don't... I already worry sometimes I go too fast on a couple of these things. If I'm ever going too fast in any of our Learn to Code streams, please yell at me and tell me to slow down. Obviously, I've been programming for a long time, so it's really easy for me to go a little bit too fast from time to time, so I try to keep it slow, even on my regular streams, by making sure I'm talking to all of you about what we're doing. So that's why it sometimes takes me a while to accomplish what I'm doing, is because I'm trying to explain and make sure that you're all keeping up. You have a question about hosting a .NET Core app on IIS. CryptoBG, that is a probably a high-level question to ask here, but you are welcome to ask it. I don't actually host any... I will tell you, I don't host any of my .NET Core apps on IIS. I actually, so I put .NET Core stuff usually direct on Azure and things like that, but I may still know the answer to your question, if you've got one. And if I don't know the answer, I can tell you I am fairly certain there is a documentation page out on Microsoft's site that will explain it pretty well. Oh, yes. So S&B is taking a guess on what he thinks probably the issue is. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So if there aren't any questions, we will talk about a couple of other things that are going on. But feel free to still ask questions in chat if you've got them, and even if I don't get to your question, we do have a bunch of other professional programmers that are fairly awesome people that are over there in chat and can help out as well, like S&B can certainly help out with a lot of questions, and there are plenty of others over there as well. Okay, so the things I want to talk about, I want to give a quick explanation for anybody who is who just showed up. As I said, roughly speaking, we try to do about one a week of our Learn to Code series here on the channel, and I just linked in the chat to where you can find out about those episodes, so that'll tell you when we have them. If you want to check out our regular episodes, just type in our schedule command and say where you live. So maybe you live in London. You could just say schedule London, and that will give you the time in your time. And you can do that for whatever time you're in. Just type in the place. It could be a country, a city. Just take a guess, and it will basically Google it for you and give you the time for that. But if you do want to follow along, what you'll want to do is you will want to get our setup going. So the first thing you want to do is install Visual Studio Code, which is this program right here. So go ahead and take a look at Visual Studio Code, and you can find that at code.visualstudio.com. It'll look a little bit like this, and it'll have a big old download link right here. If it gets your operating system wrong, just hit the down arrow and choose the correct one. But this will run on Windows, Mac, or Linux. And then if you want to follow along, you're going to want to make sure that you get the SDK for Dotnet Core. So go to this website here, which I also linked in chat, and you're going to go ahead and click on the Dotnet Core SDK right here, and that will download that, which I'm going to cancel because I don't need another copy of it. But you're basically going to run through those two installers, and once that is set up, you will run VS Code, which is this program right here. You're going to want to click on this extensions piece over here and search for C#. Whoops, C#. And then click on this, and this that says uninstall for me will say install for you. And you'll click on that, and then once it's done installing, you'll get a reload button. You'll click that, and then you are set and good to go. And then you'll be able to follow along. If you missed one of our earlier episodes, and you do want to follow along in those, just go click on our videos section right up here, and right up on the top, you will see our Learn to Code in C# series right here. And today's episode will be added right onto the end of that. So you'll be able to watch from the beginning, episode 1 of our Learn to Code series, episode 2, episode 3, and today's episode, episode 4. Draco401. So, the question of can you learn C# if you stay here? We are wrapping up for the day, and yes, you can use Visual Studio Community 2017 if you'd like, and you'd follow along the exact same way. Everything we did here today is also recorded, and it will be on there. So if you do want to learn C#, Draco, I would recommend you start from episode 1 of our Learn to Code series, and you can watch episode 1, 2, and 3, and then the 4th episode will be right here. So if you do have any questions about that, follow along there. I'm also probably going to do some live reruns of these, where I will have the video just running, and when I do those, I will probably also do a when we do those streams where I do a rerun, I will probably be in chat with my bot as well to answer questions if anybody has them. So you could follow along on one of those. I don't know when they'll be, but if you click the follow button here, so it is gonna appear right about here. It doesn't show for me because I'm the person that's on the stream, but there should be a follow button around there or something. It's a little heart. Click on that and you will follow the channel and you will get notified when we go live, just like they just did. So a couple of people just clicked follow, so thank you for that. And I'm gonna get off that stream because that weird. So Takeshi, thanks for following, and Draco, thanks for following as well. Let's see, and thank you, Solidaris. I appreciate the compliment there. Odd question: if I download a package in .NET, is there a file that stores the package so I don't have to commit the package to? Seb the Third, yes. If you are using the NuGet package manager in C#, you do not have to commit the package. You will basically be committing a file that says which packages NuGet is supposed to include, and I can explain that on a regular stream. Does it create the standard out log file? Pyro, I'm not sure what you're asking. Does what create that? So our console applications are running those. VS Code kinda heavier than Sublime. Oh, yeah, Bits by Bits, that is true. And thanks for following, everybody. Bits by Bits, that is true. VS Code is heavier than Sublime. It'll do more than Sublime, but it's still fairly lightweight. It's very powerful, though. And you download these packages again, and they're done. It was awesome, thank you, SMB. Oh, yep, good job, SMB. Thank you for answering the questions. You'll be playing with the app till late tonight. Awesome, Mage. Glad you enjoyed it. What have you gone through in the earlier episodes? So Draco, in the earlier episodes, all 3 of them were actually console applications, and we were covering things like variables, strings, integers, how programs handle numbers, methods, different types of looping and control flow, if statements, then statements. We haven't gotten to all that many advanced concepts yet. We've covered link in C#, we've covered looping, while loops, for loops, do while loops, and all things like that. So if any of that sounds interesting to anybody, If you did miss the beginnings of these, because I know there are a bunch of people in here that were not here in the beginning, I highly recommend you take a look at our earlier videos in our Learn to Code series. Just click on the videos section up above, and if you go there, you'll see this Learn to Code in C# series, and you can watch each one of these. And I believe if you're watching them, you could even speed them up, slow them down, pause them, rewind, so it should be quite nice for learning to code. The problem with going that route and not catching us live is that it's harder to ask a question. So if you do have questions, still feel free to ask. I think you can ask on the video even. But also, if there are any people in here who are interested in talking about code, you're interested in that, you like talking about programming, go check out our Discord. So the DevChatter Discord is a place that you can talk to the rest of us. We are building a nice community of developers that are all interested in programming, .NET, C#, and a lot of other cool things. So if you do want to chat with any other people that are interested in programming, DevChatter. We chat about dev stuff, obviously. And if you don't know what Discord is, it is kind of like Slack for gamers. So gamers and Twitch streamers tend to use Discord as their chat application, and I am a gamer and a Twitch streamer, obviously. So go check that out. And if you want to catch any of our old videos, so Twitch only keeps our videos around for so long, that's why there's only 28 of them here. We have a lot more videos recorded on this channel than that. You can check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/devchatter, and that has tons of videos on it. Because we are up to, I believe today's episode is episode 79 of DevChatter, and most of our episodes are 2 to 3 hours long. So lots of good content, and if you're watching the videos, you can, I believe, speed them up either in Twitch and in YouTube, I think. So if I'm ever going too slow or too fast, that's where to do it. Let me check. Will you do a tutorial with web APIs, more for the back-end nerds like me? Seb the Third, yeah. So those will probably, we'll probably get to something eventually along those lines in our Learn to Code in C# series. But I am guessing that you'll get more about web APIs and things like that in our other streams. So we're probably going to do some of that for our game tracker program. There's a good chance we're going to cover APIs a little bit when we have Chris Woodruff on the stream, because I know that's something he's really interested in as well. And he's actually a Microsoft MVP, and he's also a JetBrains employee. So JetBrains is the company that builds this tool that I actually have installed in my Visual Studio here. Chris is actually a guy that I've worked with for a number of years before as well. He worked at another component vendor with me. In fact, I interviewed him for that job. He's an awesome dude. He's very smart, and we are looking forward to having him on the stream. And what do I think of data science? Bits by bits, I would want to know exactly what you mean by what do I think of it. And let's see, Draco, alright, see you, I'm gonna head out in the early videos when I need VS Code. Thank you, SNB, for covering that question of what does Draco need to install. So the things you'd want to install are VS Code, that was linked there. That'll take you to this website here. And the other thing, and then you click on the download link, big download link right here. The next thing you'll need to install is the Dotnet Core Sdk, which is right here. So click on Dotnet Core Sdk and install that as well. And then the last thing is the C# extension. So for that, it's right here. You click on this big thing right here. You search for C#. And once you do that, C# is one of these results, and you should see that it's from Microsoft. That's how you know you found the right one. Will I do a stream about making web applications or web API, but following best practices about security, design, end-tier architecture, and so on? Steep Left, we do that. That's our regular streams. So if you want to check those out, check out our regular streams on DevChatter. Our main projects right now are all running in ASP.NET Core. They all use Razer Pages. We have all of them structured using a clean architecture that keeps the all the infrastructure concerns outside of the web project for the most part. We have a couple of exceptions that we still need to get rid of, because obviously we're doing them on the stream, so we can't get everything exactly how we want it every time. We are using testing And we're going to be doing some stuff actually about our authentication and authorization coming up here soon, especially when we're doing our game tracker program. That one's actually going to have authentication and authorization, so you'll see how we do that there as well. I am not someone that can really talk much about design. I'm not much of a designer, but I am intending on getting some people on the stream who can help us with design and UX. I am good friends with a guy named Mark Miller, who is the author of a fantastic course on the internet. What is it? ScienceGreatUI.com. So sgui.com right here. Mark Miller is a good friend of mine. He's been on the stream one time before. He talked to us about Code Rush when he was here on the stream, but I want to get him back on at some point to talk to us about UX stuff, because I think he'd be a good candidate for that. He has an awesome course on the internet called The Science of Great UI, and you can find it here by following that link, clicking on one of these, and you can get to his awesome course on Science of Great UI. I should also mention, if you are interested in getting that Mark's course, you should let me know, and I can actually get, any DevChatter viewer actually gets a discount code on all DevIQ courses. So if you did want to watch one of those, let me know, and I can make sure I get you a discount code so it's a little bit cheaper. Will later in the series interfaces be covered? Always difficult. Wait, hang on. Will way later in the series interfaces be covered? Always. Stuggy. Yes, we will absolutely be talking about interfaces, and eventually on this Learn to Code by series, that will definitely be in here because we're eventually going to talk about testing as well. And if you want to learn about interfaces and how they work and things like that, I'd recommend you keep your eyes out. We're going to do a series of streams about the solid principles of object-oriented design, which is kind of a high-level concept. So if you are interested in catching our solid courses, I think, Stuggy, you might have already followed, but if you didn't, click the follow button because we are going to be doing a full series of videos, I should say series of streams, which will then be videos, one video each for each of the solid principles of object-oriented design. So that's SOLID. I have been doing workshops explaining those concepts and teaching them for probably close to a decade now. So they're very fun, and you will absolutely learn about interfaces in the interface segregation one. And welcome, Oh My G4. Thank you for following. And Bits by Bits, am I currently unemployed? So I'm self-employed right now. I do contract work. I do mentoring and training for various clients, and I work on applications for them as well. So I spend about half my time doing contract work and about the other half of my time doing this stream. I guess the short answer is I'm not looking to do more work than I'm already doing necessarily because I love doing the stream. I don't make much money from doing the stream, and most programmers aren't willing to talk too much about their salaries, but most of the time when I'm working full-time, my salary is, basically, without talking specifics, always a six-figure salary as a programmer, and it varies based on which company I'm working for and what I'm doing. Obviously, for the right company, I would make less money, but for the right things, but money's not the end-all be-all. Like, money's not the greatest thing about being a programmer. If you're programming for money, cool, you can if you want. And welcome, I Heart Coding. I Heart Coding has the right idea there. As programmers, we need to be willing to... So programmers are usually like what they're doing. That doesn't mean you have to be one of those, like, I program 80 hours a week, I program at work, and I program when I'm at home, and I do all these things. You don't have to do that, but exactly what S&B just said. Programmers often like their jobs. I like what I'm doing. And yes, so I've taken a pay cut to work at a company before. I actually worked at a company where every one of our lead developers, we all took pay cuts to go work there. And I've asked them at places, would you take a pay cut to go back? And their answer is always yes, because we liked the job that we were doing so much we'd be willing to go work. Like, we're like, that job was great. We had so much fun at that job doing that stuff that of course we'd be willing to pay less. If we don't like the job as much, you're going to have to pay us more to get us to do it. That's just kind of how it works. Draco, what kinds of things can you build with C# and .NET? Pretty much anything. It's mostly applications. A lot of people build websites. You can build mobile apps if you use Xamarin. So you could build an application for iOS or Android. You can build web applications. You can build UI applications. This program here, Visual Studio, is actually written in C#. It's written in WPF. It's not entirely written in C#, but there are portions of it that are. There are so many things written in C# you don't realize. You can do game development. There are actually a lot of games built in a platform called Unity, and that is actually C#. So there's all kinds of things you can do with C#. It's really fantastic. But I will tell you, so the part of my job that I like most is actually the mentoring. So that is something that I do. So I work with companies. They will contact me and ask if I can do some mentoring work for them. So what I will do is I will go to their company and run workshops for them, teaching their programmers how to use different technology. I will also do pair programming with their developers. So essentially some teams that I work with, I will sit down for an hour a day with a developer or something like that. So what I might do is say, like, let's say your team has 8 developers. I would sit down and I would pair program with each of those developers for an hour each week, essentially just trying to help reinforce good habits that I've already taught them in a workshop, and just basically getting every programmer doing good, better practices on a regular basis by pair programming with them. So that is one of my favorite things to do. That is actually one of the most rewarding jobs that I get to do. So it's quite fun, and I've helped a number of development teams improve their practices and essentially like level up their developers by working with them. Doing what you love is more important than money. Exactly, I heart coding, which I figured you were probably a person that thought that way based on your name. And Steve Leff, I think that if programmers work for money, after some period they'll tire of the job and will... Yes, Steve Lev, that is well said. If the reason you're programming is just for money, you will eventually tire of it because you didn't actually like programming that much. So it's much easier to get burned out on it if you don't actually get the joy of programming. So I always love, like, even the simple things, like we programmed this simple little application, you know, like we celebrated the little stuff. Like, oh, hey, cool, we got that working, that's neat. And so that's actually really the best thing about programming, is realizing I'm building a thing. Every single day, we build new things. Even if they're not visible, even if this isn't going to be used by like 1 million people, it doesn't matter. I built a thing. It was cool. Like, I mean, that's like, how many jobs can someone be like, yeah, no, I built a new thing today. Like, yeah, and, you know, I fixed a thing today. I solved a problem that I spent 4 hours on today. Like, even though that's frustrating, at the end of the 4 hours, you're like, I figured it out. I got it. That was cool. Like, I'm glad we got it. Leading lady. That is... Thank you. I agree. I currently earn practically nothing per month, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. I myself totally agree with what you said. Exactly, I heart coding. Yes. Yep. Yeah. And welcome, leading lady. I don't think I've seen you around here in a while. Welcome back. I am happy to talk with you guys for a long time if you want to keep chatting about coding stuff. But the couple of things I do want to mention. For anybody who is wondering, our code is out there on GitHub for any of the developers that are experienced that are here. If you want to learn more about C# and you want to learn programming, you're one of the new people that showed up and you're wondering what we're doing, that is a link to the event that we're doing here. So about once a week, we try to do a Learn to Code in C# episode here on DevChatter. It's going to be one of our more beginner-oriented episodes. But even if you are a beginner, you are welcome to show up to any of our episodes and ask questions and just follow along. It should be fun. Yeah, Takeshi, that is actually pretty awesome. You don't, like, even if you are not someone that enjoys programming all that much, it frustrates you, which it might. I am really glad that people do enjoy celebrating with us, because it is always, always fun to build something and see it come together. Let's see. Yeah, bits by bits. So you can love your job and still get paid well for it. That's one of the nice things about programming. Glad to hear it, Zion. I really appreciate all the support from everybody that's been showing up, chatting, helping out in chat, asking questions. You've all been really great. Yes, I heart coding. DevChatter, you as an experienced developer, what are your thoughts about AI taking over jobs as a developer? Could we see that soon? Steve Leff, maybe to some extent. So I don't think it's going to disappear as quickly as some people might worry that it will. And the reason I say that is that I can cite things like higher level programming languages like C# and Python. They do so much more code than you could get done in, say, like C++, and cool frameworks. So we have all of these new tools that help developers, but development jobs haven't disappeared. In addition, I have worked on large and popular content management systems before. Think WordPress, Sitefinity, .NET Nuke, Orchard, Kentico. There's all of these different content management systems. They did not eliminate web development jobs. In fact, a lot of times you end up with a developer customizing the content management system and adding new features to it. That happens all the time. So I would expect the same kind of thing will happen with more intelligence to create better programs. I don't think that's going to eliminate programming jobs. I think that is going to augment programming jobs and make it so that we can create more for our clients and customers. I think it's actually going to be a great thing. Oh my G4. I think you are on mobile, I would guess. So that is actually a bug that Twitch has. It is automatically forcing you onto the mobile site, and this fails when it switches you over to the mobile site. There's like something like that going on. Oh my G4. If you can't get to it that way, the events pages just don't work on mobile. So I apologize for that. I can't help you there. I have put in requests to Twitch to try and get them to fix that, but they've been changing all kinds of things, and I'm hoping they fix their site soon. So I apologize about that if you can't get to the events page. Yeah, so you are on mobile, aren't you? When you said it was an invalid link, I'm like, oh, you're on mobile. Because I figured this out a long time ago when I first started this series, like a month ago. But if you can't get to that, just try and get to here when you're on a computer at some point. The easiest way to find it is to go to our main site. So go to the DevChatter page, click on this events section here, and you will see the episodes, our events right there. So that's how you can find it. And if you guys want to check our events, I said you could hit the follow button to get all of our episodes, but you can also click a remind me for the specific episode that you want to catch. So if you want to catch episodes 5 and 6 of our Learn to Code and C# series, go ahead and click remind me. And I do want to let everybody know, while there are only 6 scheduled episodes of our Learn to Code series, we will be continuing it beyond that. That's just all the ones I scheduled so far. So I scheduled our initial 6. I will be scheduling more of these because we have had such a good response from the community, and you all seem to be enjoying it. Fizzle TV. How can you automatically scroll to the end if I add new lines to a text box in WPF? Fizzle, I'm actually not sure. I'd have to find out what you're actually talking about there. But what I would recommend is, if you have a question like that, Google for it, check Stack Overflow, and ask a question on there if you need to. But the one recommendation I would give for Stack Overflow, make sure the question's not already there before you post it, otherwise someone's going to just close it down and say it was a duplicate. DevOps, is it 2 jobs into 1 job? Not exactly, Stuggy. DevOps is kind of like a job between 2 jobs. It's kind of like the person that is almost a sysadmin, almost like they're more like a sysadmin than a developer. But that's because sysadmins already did coding, and it's sort of like automating the process of deploying web applications. So it's a very dev-focused sysadmin type job, is probably the best way of describing it. They straddle both worlds because they need to know sysadmin stuff and they need to know development. So it's a very, very interesting role. It's a very buzzwordy type thing, but they're pretty awesome people if you work with good ones. Okay, I see. There's only 27 videos, but you're on episode. Where can I see the other? That's a great question, Zion. There are 27 videos. The reason for that is that Twitch does not maintain all the old videos. So Twitch only keeps them going back to May 12th. If you want to see all of our episodes before that point, I linked it in chat. You can go to our YouTube channel, and our YouTube channel actually keeps additional videos. So the YouTube channel, you'll notice, has quite a few more videos on it. So right now, YouTube only goes up to, what is this, episode 58? So the reason I do that is I try to make it so that videos are usually only in Twitch or YouTube, not both. So the YouTube videos are on a few-week delay. So you can check out our YouTube channel to get more content on that. As I said, the channel's pretty easy to find. It's youtube.com/c/devchatter. So awesome. Thank you for the subscriptions on YouTube, people. I greatly appreciate it. Oh my G, that is great. Let's see. So culture can be brutal. Yes. Stack Overflow culture can be brutal. That's why I was very careful about recommending you really, really make sure that that question hasn't already been asked. Try not to get scared. Don't be worried about asking a question on Stack Overflow. If they close your question down, don't be offended. They're just trying to keep it clean so that answers are easier to find on there. One of the best things I can tell you is when you're in the development world, we're not always the nicest people. We should be more welcoming, and we try to be here on DevChatter. So our community is a pretty nice one, so we're friendly here, but you're going to run into that as you get into development. Some people just aren't going to be nice about stuff. Don't let it bug you. Just keep going with things. Trust me. We're all figuring things out all the time. None of us know all the answers, so it's very good. Affiliates are non-partnered. Streamers' videos disappear after a while. They don't stay forever. Yeah, exactly. I'm an affiliate on Twitch. I'm not a partner, so they don't stick around forever. That's why my videos disappear. I am hoping I eventually reach partner on Twitch. I would love it if I could get that many viewers. So if you want to help us get there, there are a lot of nice benefits both for the viewers and for me if we can get to the partner status. I'm able to have a lot more emotes if we get there, which is just fun for people in the chat. So anybody who subscribes to us here on Twitch gets access to our emotes. If we got partner, we would have a bunch of fun emotes to use, and we would get other benefits like our videos lasting longer and better adjustments on video quality for anybody who wanted to watch. So the best way, the only real requirement that we fall short on is just that we need more viewers. So if you do want to help us get to partner here on the channel, we would really appreciate it, because we could make a lot better content for everyone and make DevChatter much more fun for all of you. And the way that we would do that is by just getting more viewers. I heart coding. You know that I am primarily focused on the .NET side of things, but do I ever delve into Swift, PHP, or Rust? So I haven't done any of that here on the stream. However, I have done a little bit of PHP, primarily while working on WordPress sites. That's about the only exposure I really get to PHP. It's not a language that I dive into much. I have done work in Java before, although I like C# a lot better than I like Java. It's still a reasonable language to use, and I've done it specifically for Android coding. For iOS development, interestingly enough, I have not done Swift yet. I've done Objective-C coding. So as you can probably guess, I was doing that before Swift was out, and I actually like Objective-C, which probably scares some people. I didn't at first. I thought it was a terrible language at first. I used it for a little while, and then suddenly I was like, you know what? This actually isn't that bad. The best description I ever heard of Objective-C is that it's a really ugly language until the Stockholm Syndrome sets in, and so the idea being that Objective-C messes you up so much that once you really get it, it's actually a nice language. So I like Objective-C, and yeah, it is a weird one to get used to, and I have not used Rust yet. Now you can develop mobile applications in Xamarin, so you don't really need Objective-C or Java. Yes, Bobby, Zeno Bobby, that is correct. So you can use Xamarin. You could also build applications for iOS and Android using JavaScript. So you really don't need to use those. But some people like them, so it's really up to you what you want to use. That's why I'm always telling people, like, we love C# here on the channel. I like JavaScript. It's a good language as well. There are a lot of good programming languages. There isn't a right programming language. There isn't a language that is just better than the other languages. It all comes down to what you know, what you're building, how you want to build it, and how you want it to work. So if you like building things in C#, awesome, build them in C#. If you like JavaScript, cool. Grab Node, build some stuff in JavaScript. It'll be fun. Whatever you want to... and Zeno Bobby, yes, a programming language, but you shouldn't always just use one. You should use a language that's good for what you're doing. So I recommend to everybody, don't just learn one language. Learn more than one programming language. It'll take you a lot further. That's not to say that you can't focus on one. So my primary language is C#. And Stuggy, yes, C# does have pointers. It hides them. They actually are going on behind the scenes, and if you need to get access to them, C# actually does allow you to write what they call unsafe code, which does get you access to the pointers, as Pyro just mentioned. I've been doing C# and I understand a bit more than the basics, and I now started learning C. What do you think about that? Should I focus more on C# or should I learn C? Zion, the short answer to that one is, again, what are you planning on building? There are applications where C is a better language to use for them, and then there are things that are better written in C#. If you are building a business application and you're writing it in C, I think you're crazy. You should be writing that in C#. If you are writing low-level code for programming a game engine, you should write that in C. So, various things like that. So, now if you are actually writing the game, you could write that in Unity using C#, for example. So it comes down to what you're building. I have friends that write code in C and C++ all the time, and I have friends that write code in C#. There are developers all around the world using all of them, and the way you know what language they're using is what program are they building. That's the main difference. Use Unity for a cross-platform application, not just a game. Oh, that's true, Pyro. You could use... Yes, you can build non-games in Unity. I just said that because that's what normally is in it. Does C# have Windows? Well, to be fair, you can make a great game engine and servers in C# as well. Yes, that's true, Pyro. You can build great game engines in C#. Yes, yes, yes. Professor of mine, I study computer science, still uses Pascal, and he works for a very big corporation. Zeno Bobby, yes. So... some large companies have not managed to upgrade their applications beyond what they were decades ago. And so some companies have these programs that have been running for a really long time and they keep using, and they haven't gotten off of them. And some of the problem is that they don't want to stop it because it's still working and it's still serving a purpose for them, and it's expensive to convert all of their stuff into new programming languages for no other reason than just to upgrade. The challenge is it's getting more difficult sometimes to maintain those applications and make changes, modifications to them, because so few developers actually know the old languages. So yeah, there are still companies using Pascal, there are still companies using COBOL, still companies using Fortran. There's a lot of languages that are not all that common among developers anymore, but still exist in some large corporations. Even smaller corporations tend to have that old code still lying around. The best programming language depends on the purpose of the project you are doing. Exactly, Steeplef. And actually how you feel when building something with... Yes, so, Steeplef, that is the exact answer that I'm always telling people on here whenever you get the troll that shows up and is like, C#, what? C#'s terrible language. It's like, sure, buddy. C-Sharp's actually good at some things. It's true that there are things that I wouldn't recommend writing C-Sharp. Oh, Pyro, that's mean. Python's not that bad either. Come on, guys. Just because I'm not going to use a programming language doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I will say, like, a language might not be in the style. It might not use a syntax I enjoy. Things like that. That does not mean the language is bad. There are a lot of programming languages that get a bad rap for things, and Python's one of those. So for anyone who is in here and isn't sure, Python is actually a programming language where white space is significant. That means that how things are tabbed over matters. We've been in C#, so like doing this to my code makes no difference and the code runs the same. This would not work in Python. How it's tabbed actually makes a difference in Python, and so that's actually one of the things that it gets a bad rap for. Zion, the reason you went to learn to try C is because a lot of people were telling me that mastering C will make every other programming language so much easier once you understand the logic. Zion, kinda. My recommendation, if someone wants to learn what's actually going on underneath the hood of C# and understand it better, I would recommend you learn C++, not C. The reason I recommend that is that C++ has more stuff to help you along the way than C, but C++ still deals with the things that are going on underneath the hood in a language like C#. So it's kind of like the middle ground. If you go all the way to C, yes, you'll learn more about it than you will with C++, but I would stand that C++ will actually get you enough of that understanding to allow you to be better at C# and other languages that are higher level. So you don't need to go all the way to C, you can stop with C++, and that's far enough back to get that understanding. HTML is obviously the best programming language. Seb, HTML is a markup language. It is involved in development, so I would call it a software development language because it is a markup language, but I would not call it a programming language. Though some people might argue with me on that. Haskell for me too scary. Yes, Dougie, I agree. I don't want to learn it either. Is it nice to learn C or C++ because you will learn what is actually happening under the hood? Yes, Steep Left. That's actually so. I do know C and C++, and that's part of why I know what is going on underneath the hood in C#. It's not required for programming, but it can help you understand. So it's one of those things, once you know how to program, I do recommend people learn C and C++, one of those two, or something like them, so that you understand more about what's going on underneath the hood, but you do not need it to be a programmer, so don't let anyone tell you that you're not a real programmer if you don't know those languages. That is simply not true, and they're just being elitist and mean. Like, that's not to say you can't improve your abilities as a developer by learning them, but you are still a developer. Even if all you know is high-level languages, you are still writing code. Mastering object-oriented programming and you will be all good. Zenobobby, that is a very good point. You do want to learn the type of programming language that you're in. So C# is an object-oriented language, so you want to learn that to be a little bit better at C#. Object-oriented programming is a very good concept. C++ is just C with more frameworks. Yeah, Pyro, it is. That's actually why I recommend people learn it. And Crimson Green, thank you for gifting a sub to our bot, who should now be able to... there we go. You fixed the bot, so the bot can actually use the emote now. There we go. Let's see. And CarQ, welcome. Hello. Yeah, so hopefully everybody's enjoying this discussion about programming languages. We kind of just got started on this. We wrapped up our actual coding for the day, and have now sat around chatting. So welcome to DevChatter, where we just chat about development, because why not? We're all a bunch of people that are interested in it. Yeah, so Any other questions, comments about anything we're doing here? Ruby has a nice syntax too, but it's kind of slow compared to the language. Yeah, that is fair, Pyro. So for anybody that is wondering about performance, part of the reason why .NET Core is becoming so popular among C# programmers is the fact that our newest programming platform, .NET Core, as opposed to the full .NET framework, .NET Core is so much faster. And benchmarks of, if you look at benchmarks on .NET Core, that because Microsoft keeps improving .NET Core, and then every time they do, they run all these benchmarks comparing it to all these other different programming languages. It is crazy how fast it is now. It is unbelievable. Zenobobby, I actually have not done .NET development on a Linux machine since doing Mono on it a bunch of years ago. So I've not done actual development on a Linux machine yet, but I do know a bunch of people that do. Do I write code in JavaScript or any other JavaScript frameworks? Yes, Steeplef. I do write JavaScript, and I do like JavaScript, and there are frameworks for it that I enjoy using. Static variables and classes, do each instance have the same value always? String. So if you have a static field, or if you have a static field on a class, Stuggy, there is only one instance of that per thread of your program, or per process. So if you are running your program, there's only one instance of that variable in your program. If you're running two instances of your program, so think two separate command line windows, for example, you'll have different values in them. But for any given execution of your entire program, so like one console you did .NET Run, you'll have one instance of that variable that'll get modified. Yeah, so Pyro, you can now use VS Code on Linux, which is pretty nice. Yes, Crimson Green. Someone did say Ruby. Yeah, Crimson, are you still at work? Crimson Green might be at... no, it's a weekend. You're not at work. I don't know why he's slow then. Yeah, so I will tell you, if you want to run C# code and you're not on Windows, I do recommend that you use VS Code. It is fairly good. If you are on a Mac, there is Visual Studio for Mac, which I haven't tried. It might be good. I don't have any experience with it, and I haven't heard much feedback on it. So you're welcome to give that a try if you like, and I would love to hear how it is if you are on a Mac. So Pyro, yeah, if you're going to use VS Code, you're going to need to drop into the command line a little bit. You can add references from you want to add that stuff through the command line, or you can add them directly in the CS proj file, which isn't as nice, but you can add all your NuGet references like that. So use the command line, just use the NuGet, essentially the .NET CLI application that will access NuGet and add in the reference for you. Any good using wine? Oh, Zenobobby, I've never tried it. In theory, Visual Studio should work through wine, so you can try it, but I haven't. So it's big enough that I would worry that there might be something that'd go wrong, but as I said, I haven't tried it, so maybe it'll work. VS for Mac is okay. It doesn't have any of the bells and whistles of the full Visual Studio on Windows, though. Oh, I heart coding. Well, that's a bummer, because that's the whole reason we use Visual Studio. Yeah, so... Okay, I mentioned Slack earlier. Why do we use this? Okay, so Slack is just a chat program that's commonly used in programming companies, and it's used in a lot of other businesses as well. It's just a chat application for people to coordinate at a business. But here on our channel, we don't use Slack here at DevChatter. We use a program called Discord, and you are all welcome to join our Discord. Slack is Discord for developers. There you go, Crimson Green. So I describe Discord as Slack for gamers, and Slack is Discord for developers. There you go. And Pyro likes Sublime better. There you go. It all comes down to preference. If you like Sublime better, you can actually use Sublime. You can use VS Code. It's up to you. At the end of the day, they're just text editors. Personally, Pyro, I actually like Visual Studio the best. This is the one that I normally program in. It's very powerful, but I run on a beefy desktop computer with lots and lots of RAM that's very fast, so and fast SSD drives, so I don't mind running in Visual Studio. But if you have a slower computer, you might mind running in Visual Studio, because it's big, beefy, uses a lot of resources, and yeah. And yes, there you go. For if you're doing like any big applications, serious programming, you're going to run Visual Studio. And that's actually another reason why we're teaching C# in VS Code. Is VS Code is, while it's a text editor that's not based on Visual Studio, it was clearly meant to feel a little bit like it. So if you switch off of VS Code and go to Visual Studio, it should be an easy transition. I mean, it's going to be a big step, but it should feel the same. So that's one of the things about it. And I Heart Coding, thanks for stopping by. I am glad you did tune in, but I'm looking forward to seeing you at our future streams. I believe you clicked the follow button, so you will get notified when we go live. And take care. Okay. Well, if no one has anything else to bring up and discuss, I actually think I should probably get going as well, as I've got a few things I need to do here while it is still the weekend, and it's probably a good idea to give my voice a little bit of a rest, because obviously I have a cold that I'm dealing with a little bit. You might be able to hear a little bit of scratchiness in my voice. If you're one of the regulars here, you probably noticed I sound a little bit different, but we will be back on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and again, I tell everybody, if you want to know when our streams are, you can check down below. There's a panel that will adjust to your time zone and show you what time our streams are. But you can also run our schedule command by typing !schedule and put in the location where you are. So, for example, I'm in Ohio, and it spits out all those in my time. I know we had someone say that they lived in Germany. We can do schedule Germany. We could do schedule, where might someone be? California. Whoa, London. We'll do London. We'll do schedule London. So there you go. Let's see. What are the take care, buddy. One question since I'm tired. So what are the first step tips for newbies which come to your head? Steve left there too many answers for that one. Give me a second on that one. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks, Zion. Appreciate it. Adon, no, I did not see the news about Greece. I've been doing this stream, so I haven't seen anything. If something just happened, I will have to look that up. Didn't they first pull out all the UI-related code from Dotnet Core, but they didn't plan to include it again? Pyro! In Dotnet Core 3.0, it's actually going to be possible to do all of the existing UI stuff for Windows using Dotnet Core. So WinForms and things like and WPF using Dotnet Core. I'm hoping that they get us a new UI framework that works on Windows, Linux, and Mac, and is based on .NET Core. We'll see. That is my hope. Okay, so something crazy going on in Greece. I'll have to look that up. North Pole. That's weird. It didn't come back with a place there. Crimson Green. So it says Norway, Kosovo. Yep. 3 big areas caught a huge fire. Whoa. I will have to look that up. That is crazy. I will check the news when I'm off the stream. So anyway, hopefully those times get people an idea of when our streams happen. I hope you can all catch most of them. If you can't catch them, stop by for what you can. Lurk if you want. And if you don't know what lurk means, ask and we'll tell you. And anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. It was fun, and we will program some more. And well done, everybody that followed along and joined in for the discussion. helped out, anything like that. I want to thank Rubix for resubbing, Crimson Green for gifting a sub to our bot, and a whole bunch of people for following. So thank you all. Hopefully you had a great time. Leading Lady, bye. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and Zenobobby, I will see you on Monday as well. Good night, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody. Happy coding.